Wall Street Journal, Wall Street thinks America's homes are overvalued. By the way, New York Post story, previous day, says U.S. office real estate prices headed for severe crash, investors say. So let me read the Wall Street Journal one. They kind of go together. U.S. single-family house prices have continued to rise despite interest rate hikes, reaching a new high in July, while commercial real estate, including apartments, have faced declines in value. Institutional investors who bought numerous single-family homes during the pandemic have scaled back their purchases due to rising debt costs and moderated rent growth. Large landlords purchased only 0.4% of U.S. homes in the second quarter, down from a peak of 2.4% in late 2021. Some real estate investment trusts, REITs, specializing in single-family homes, have slowed their buying or become net sellers. Shares of U.S. single-family housing REITs, real estate investment trusts, trade at a 20% discount. Folks, that's a 20%. So a $40 million property is $32 million, 20% discount.
$500,000 house is $400,000.
That's right. A gross asset value, suggesting cautioning among investors about the future value of home prices. And then New York Post says the following. A survey of investors indicates that commercial real estate market in the U.S. is heading for a severe collapse, primarily due to high interest rates and declining property values. Approximately two-thirds of respondents believe that the market will only recover after a crash. Respondents in the survey predict different timelines for when office property prices will hit bottom, with 44% expecting it to happen the second half of the next year and 22% anticipating it will happen the first 6 months of 2024. Only 6% believe prices will bottom out this year, while 29% think it'll be in 2025 or later. Factors contributing to this impending crisis include aggressive rates by the Federal Reserve, reduced demand for office spaces, and concerns about potential defaults on $1.5 trillion and debt maturing by the end of 2025. Tom.
This is scary. So basically what this is saying, if the American residential homes is a stock market. So just think of that. You don't have to get deep in the technical. Let's just say all residential homes in America is a stock market. And you know, basically, you have your property tax, you have a house that sold down the street, one of the few houses that did, and you can see the price it sold for. That is your market price. So there's your average market price right now today. Your stock market is trading 20% below that, meaning that they believe there's a bubble. Well, what's going to trigger the bubble? Well, Pat was just reading second half of 24 or into 25. Why are they forecasting that far out? I'll tell you why. They believe the Fed is going to raise interest rates 1/4 point on October 31st, Halloween, to November 1st. That's when they have their next meeting. And then hold steady for 6 months, getting through fourth quarter, see what Black Friday is all about, see how the consumer spent, get into the beginning of the year where, it's usually lackluster in January and then the consumer picks up. They're forecasting that they will not come to lower rates, and this is the Fed, all the Fed governors talking that they're not going to make the first rate lowering until the end of March, end of Q1, beginning of Q2 next year. So that's the first time the rate lowers. Then if the economy is doing well, and there'll be pressure from the administration to lower those rates going into the election, that. And so as that happens toward the end of 24, now the mortgages maybe drop under 7 to 6.25 and maybe touch that magic 5.75, people would be willing to sell. Sell at what price? These folks think the bubble is going to be a 20% pricing adjustment. So I hope you followed that little storyline there. I tried to keep it straight.
20%. I actually want to get your perspective, PBD. So we talked about the inverse relationship between the interest rates and the bonds and all that fun stuff. I'm curious to know the relationship, the correlation between residential real estate prices and home prices and the correlation there. What's my point? During COVID, we saw the exact opposite thing happen. It was, talk about supply and demand. The rush to go buy a house during COVID was astronomical. Everyone wanted to move out of their apartments and move out of the city, buy their house. The mortgage rates were 3%, rush. Major demand for residential housing. But the exact opposite
get me one
was get me the hell out of this office.
Yeah.
Get me out of my lease. I do not want to be here. Work from anywhere, work from home. So commercial real estate obviously took a major hit. Now things have sort of recalibrated. People are, you see Jamie Dimon saying, hey, we'll just work from home was sort of done or whatever that story was. What's that correlation typically, and where's it at today? I'm trying to understand those dynamics.
This is what? This is...
So commercial real estate, obviously, there was a major decline during COVID, but residential, major boom. Maybe what's the typical correlation, and where's it at today? Is sort of where I'm at.
So go to that story. That's actually a good story to go into. So JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says AI could bring a 3.5-day work week. Let's read this article. So CEO Jamie Dimon, the benefits of artificial intelligence, which is already being used by thousands of employees at the bank, and he predicts it'll usher in the norm of a shortened work week. Your children are going to live to 100 and not have cancer because of technology. And literally, they'll probably be working 3.5 days a week. Dimon says the bank's investment in AI will add huge value and is being leveraged across the firm's research, trading, customer service, and other functions. When asked if technology is likely to replace some bank jobs, he responded that of course it will, but that technologies will always replace jobs. He also added that bank hires 30,000 people a year and that he expects many displaced workers will be transferred to new locations with roles with the new company. As many as 300 million jobs around the world could be affected by AI, according to a recent Goldman Sachs report. And about 1 in 5 workers have a job with high exposure to AI, according to Pew Research Center. Through it's unclear if AI enhance or displace these roles. So, okay, you read all this stuff. Like, for example, this one building we're looking at, right? This building in February of 2020, which is what? Right before COVID.
Yeah, the month before.
They spent $250 per square feet to upgrade a 300,000 square foot building. So how much is that? 250 times 300,000 is how much of an upgrade? The cost.
Oh my!
That's a $75 million investment to do upgrades. Jeez. Okay,
and they did it right. It's a great building.
It's an incredible.
What's the building's price? Oh, but before all this, Pat.
No, hang on. Let him
up there.
I interrupted.
It's a $90 million, let's say, building. Okay. They fixed this thing up, 300,000 square feet. Looks amazing, beautiful facility, gym. What do you call it? Cafeteria, all this stuff. It's just a ridiculous setup, right? The company's nearly a $4 billion company. To them, $75 million, it is money, but it's not like we got to make the upgrades.
Timing is important.
Yeah,
they really screwed
that's
that
the problem.
Yep.
So you signed a contract and COVID hits.
Oh, God.
Now everybody's working from home. Now when you go into this facility and you look at the entire building, half the building is empty. Yeah. People have been working from home during COVID. They're sitting there saying, what the hell do we do with this building? We want to get this thing off our balance sheet. They don't want this building, nor do they need this building.
Yeah.
Okay, with where they're at. And somebody bought them out, some $16, $17 billion company bought this building out, and they're sitting there saying, what do we do now? This is case study that's happening right now. And by the way, this has happened across the board. There's another building here down the street, 200,000 square foot building, okay, office space. Just 3 years ago, it was rented 90%, so 200,000 square feet was rented 90%, okay? It's the Kaplan building. It's a Kaplan, Kaplan School.
I've seen it, yeah.
That's their headquarters. Today, it's pretty much empty. And when I tell you empty, I'm like, maybe it's rented 25, 50%. From 100%, 90% to now 25 to 50%, how are you collecting mortgage payments now? You're not. And this is in a market that's attracting businesses, meaning we're not talking about San Francisco right here, this building right here.
Wow.
193,000 square foot building, okay? We're not talking about a, San Francisco or Chicago or New York or any of those markets. Cream of the crop, Florida, that people are moving to.
Yeah.
Empty buildings, Class A, beautiful buildings, sitting empty. On the complete opposite side, industrial buildings where people can do like shipping, what Amazon does and some of these other. No, those are jam-packed. Those,
products
good luck getting space.
Yeah.
No. They're not having a hard time selling. Industrial buildings, they don't have a hard time selling. They don't have a hard time, they have a hard time buying.
Oh, wow.
They can't find enough of that.
Got you.
Tom.
And by the way, let's draw a line. So those industrial buildings that are being turned into wholesale distribution centers, who are they being turned into? For Walmart and for Target. And, ladies and gentlemen, and Amazon, because they're still delivering stuff to your home. And in certain blue cities, are you paying attention? Your Target just closed.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean Target doesn't want to sell you stuff. It means they couldn't afford to have the public retail open. And so now they've got distribution stuff because they still want to deliver to you. They still want to sell you stuff at Target. They're just not going to have smash and grabs and have employees at risk. So they need commercial warehouse space, and they're competing with Walmart and competing with Amazon to go find it. So that is a very rich market where they're actually competing and bidding each other up.
And so, Pat, who was it? Jamie Dimon said it, where your grandkids are going to live to be 100 years old. And then he said you're going to work 3.5 days a week. Now, is that because they want you to work from home, or is it because the AIs are going to be taking your jobs? And guess what? They're like, listen, we don't want to get rid of you completely, but just you'll be there a little bit because robots are basically going to take you.
I mean, just think about it.
It's crazy.
Right? I think I'm one of the only guys in my 40s that still reads a physical newspaper. Okay. I actually like reading a physical newspaper.
Yes.
When's the last time you saw somebody reading a physical newspaper?
You're literally, I read it sometimes just for nostalgia. I want to hold it.
Yeah, but the point is, like, newspapers are done. There used to be a time newspapers were it. Radio is done. Podcast is killing it, right? Cable TV is about to be destroyed.
Yeah.
It may take 5 to 10 years, but they're going to get crushed, right? Maybe, just maybe, the next thing that's going to get destroyed may be commercial real estate in a big way.
Wow.
It may get crushed in a big way if they're going this direction. Because what will happen is if you can have AI doing a lot of the work, why do I need a big fancy building to be in? I don't. Most industries are not going to need it. Some will. Most industries are not going to need it. So they're going to experience their disruption.
They used to say there was the death of the modern American mall, right? Like, why the hell do we need all this space, retail shopping? Yeah. But what that forced malls to do was get creative. All right, so maybe what are we going to do with all this space? All right, so rather than having retail shops galore, let's set up an amusement park. Let's put a roller skating rink in there.
Yeah.
When you have all this massive amount of property and there's segments of the market like retail, why do you need to go shopping necessarily? You can just go online. It just forces you to get more creative. And Tom, you might know this, but the death of the mall, was that premature? I don't know how many malls actually closed down. Do you know that number?
No, I don't know the number, but I know Westfield took it in the chops. They're a large operator of malls. And you look at what happened in San Francisco, you see these horrible pictures on Twitter. It looks like some dystopian future, weird space thing where the mall's completely desolate and homeless people have moved in there. So the malls, you've got malls that are still out there operating, but the typical mall has taken a bath. And I'll tell you something else from the venture side of it. So I'm not going to name any companies, but there is a gold rush of companies out there that take your cell phone and your friend or your spouse, just you wear your underwear and you take pictures of the front, back, and side of you, and they give you like a 90% accuracy of fit of clothing, because clothing fit and clothing return was one of the first big challenges of e-commerce. You buy a shirt, this isn't a medium, this is too tight, and you couldn't tell. Well, now you have all these tools that are out there that are going to take away what many people think is the last frontier of the mall, the ability to look at and shop for clothing, that it's going away. You'll be able to see yourself in the clothing, size yourself in the clothing, and that the death of the mall is coming quickly on a generalized state. Now, there in Newport Beach, California, there's a mall there, Fascist Island, and it's still there. There's high-dollar communities that still have their malls, but
malls are. Have you been in a mall lately, Tom? They're it's sad in there.
This is sort of my point here. This is sort of what I was studying. The decline of the American mall has left just 700 still standing. Wow. Soon there may be 150 left. This is in 2022. If you scroll down a little bit, Rob, there are just 150 malls left in the United States in 10 years, according to one industry watcher. That's his speculation. There are currently around 700 malls in the U.S., down from 2,500 in the 80s. Malls have suffered as an online sales boom. So here's my hypothesis. This is just,
I love those.
Not a commercial mall expert.
Yeah.
The need for malls was a need for shopping. That's where you would go get your stuff, your merchandise, your clothes. You just do some general stuff. Thanks, buddy. So that might obviously decrease with the boom of online shopping.
Yeah.
But what we've realized has not decreased is the need for hanging out in public.
Yeah, no shit.
And the need to be around people, and the need to go out, and the need to socialize, and the quite frankly, they just need to be around people. And malls represent that. They've always represented that. So you might not be going to the mall anymore to go shopping and do your typical thing, but there might be,
that sounds
like I mentioned,
great. That sounds,
but those people are paying the rent, right?
That sounds great and all, but these guys are not running a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
You're going to have to spend money.
No, but my point is that's why they're going to get creative instead of having retail outlets. Like there's some malls that are opening up amusement parks, or they're opening up big movie theater type situations, or things that people will congregate.
They got to get really creative, though.
That's my point.
They got to get really, really
We
creative.
could dive into this deep, and I know Pat's got other stories here, but I'm going to give you 2 quick points, if I could, Pat, real quick. You're going to see innovation and venture capital out there. Think of these guys. This is one of many companies that's doing this. They convert vacant office buildings into housing, into 900 square foot apartments, mini apartments, and things like this. They do that, number one. And then number two, you're seeing things such as, it was on my case study, I'm not pimping for the company, Pat, but you're going to see many companies like Free Range Concepts in Dallas, which is this guy that owns 3 different restaurants. One is called The Rustic, that actually has a music and open air area behind the restaurant. To your exact point, I don't just go to the restaurant, I want to sit with my friends. And the malls are not going to operate a nonprofit for you to sit around the food court at the mall and chat for each other, but restaurants are doing that. He also has a restaurant that's almost like a Chili's, but it caters to people with dogs. And there's this big area in the center where you can actually walk your dog. So what's happening is the need for community is being met in other ways by entrepreneurs, because you're exactly right. Where do we go to hang out together? Hey, there's my friend from high school. He was walking the other way in the mall and he just bought a pair of jeans, and I would see him and talk to him. And that need in our humanness is still there, but it's not going to be at the malls. And I see things happening with innovative restaurant concepts and other things to meet the human need.
Tom, have you ever been to the Mall Americas in Minneapolis, Minnesota?
Oh, God.
No, I've never been there, but it was like the people would say, if God had a mall in heaven, it would look like this.
And that's my point, Rob. I don't know if you can find some images.
It's like half a mile.
This is the big, I think the biggest mall in the country, maybe the world.
It's
but
ridiculous.
you go there, and what they've done is they've innovated.
Look at
so
that.
this is what's going on in the mall. You go to full-on amusement parks in the mall. So maybe you're not going to Abercrombie and Fitch over here, but you're going to their version of Disneyland in your local mall. And that's kind of what I'm saying. You got to get creative. Maybe you don't go to Dave & Buster's anymore. You go to the mall or something like that.
Well, you make a point, but again, this is there's only one. The Malls of America. Yeah,
right.
There's only one of that. It's a very big investment for them to make. Some of them, it depends on the market you're in. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? But the business model is going away. So the business model of commercial real estate may be going away unless if companies find ways to get people. Like for me, I'm always going to be an in-office guy. I'm always going to be that guy. I'm running companies. I think culture, people got to be around each other, right, to do that. But we have the predictive, AI guys that are typically quiet guys that want to be by themselves. They don't have to be in a building. Yep. They actually don't want to be around a lot of other people sometimes. They have a different wiring on where they want to be. To that world, things are going to change a lot. So this commercial real estate deal on what direction it's going to go the next 6, 12, 18 months, it may be as permanent as newspapers. Just maybe.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.